It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzico. We are less than 2 days away from the 2022 NFL Draft in Las Vegas and some movement on Monday. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting the Patriots have traded their 5th-round pick to the Texans for Houston's 6th and 7th-round picks. Nashville Soccer Club announced today 3 new minority owners in media investor Jim Toth, actress and Nashville native Reese Witherspoon, and Titans running back Derrick Henry. Nashville Soccer Club opening up Geodis Park on Sunday against Philadelphia Union after an 8-game road trip to start the season. In the NBA, one series came to an end on Monday as the Boston Celtics swept the Brooklyn Nets, winning Game 4 116-112. The Raptors also defeated the Sixers to force a Game 6, and Dallas took a 3-2 series lead over Utah with a 102-77 win. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Okay, let's get this thing going on a Tuesday. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica is back there making it all happen, keeping the show on the rails. We got a lot to do over the course of the next 3 hours, so we hope you're ready to join us here. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to physically join us via the phones or interact with us on Zone TV, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We are live streaming on all of your favorite social media platforms. NFL Draft 2 days away. Plenty of discussions around that today. I've got my draft crush. I'm ready to proclaim it. We'll get to that later on in the show, but we have to start with actual sports that took place last night, because I understand that anytime I come out of the gate with NBA, I'm always a little nervous. One, because I know the vast majority of you are either protesting professional basketball, don't like it, or just generally aren't interested. And if you are, you're interested in the Memphis Grizzlies. So anytime I'm walking up to the line, towing the line on NBA stuff, I'm like, okay, is this really the best decision? But last night, kids, a gift from the basketball gods, because it's not basketball that I want to talk specifically. It's one of the greatest embarrassments that any of us have ever seen in professional sports. I am, of course, referring to the first team to be eliminated from the NBA postseason. That's the Brooklyn Nets. This was propped up. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, traded for James Harden, about a quarter of the way into the season? Just about, maybe a little less, a little more, can't remember exactly.
Preseason title favorites.
Preseason title favorites, in fact. They acquire Ben Simmons, who never makes an appearance for the Brooklyn Nets. And yet, watching them flop around, get swept by the Boston Celtics in their first round series last night is about as big a flop as any team with expectations, regardless of sport, has ever had. Ever. It is so far beyond the pale. And I never thought, this is the first time in 17 years. This is courtesy of Sports Illustrated. I saw this stat last night. This is the first time in 17 years that Kevin Durant and or LeBron James has not made the second round of the playoffs. LeBron didn't even get in. He's sitting there couch tweeting. He's drinking a glass of Pinot, watching the Miami Heat lustfully, and tweeting out about, how successful a player Kyrie Irving is. Sure about that? 4-0. The Boston Celtics came down on the Brooklyn Nets' heads last night in Brooklyn, no less, for them to just peter out in one of the most unthinkable ways. I don't know what to make of the Kevin Durant experience. This is supposed to be one of the greatest professional athletes of all time, and there's all kinds of criticisms around him as far as, okay, he couldn't win it at OKC, so he goes and joins his first super team. Goes and wins a title. Did he win 2 with the Golden State Warriors? I know they won at least 1. I believe they won 2 titles with the Golden State Warriors. And why shouldn't they? It was it looked so easy. It almost took all the fun out of it, even as you were watching such a higher level of basketball because of the skills of all of those players. And then, Kevin Durant has a bit of a surly personality. He doesn't get along with Draymond Green. You've got the two of them yelling across the court at one another at any given point, and he decides, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to take my talents to Brooklyn, the Nets, and I'm going to play with one of the most controversial players in the sport, Kyrie Irving, and this is the place where we're going to recruit stars? This is nonsense. Not only did they fall short, and listen, he had 39. He had 39 last night, Durant did. So, he was trying to pick them up as best as humanly possible. They lost by 4, 116 to 112, and did have an opportunity to win it at the end of the game, even still. And they just completely blew it. Kevin Durant is a great example of, given that we're talking about A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel and all these players across the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, players who are taking the power unto themselves that the platform has given them and trying to forge their own way. I don't fault them for that at all. In fact, I encourage it. I think it's great. But when it blows up in your face the way that Kevin Durant's situation just did, especially when you are he is just so confrontational with everybody. And this is removed from him getting rid of his Twitter burners. Now he just fights with people on the internet outright. You think A.J. Brown's got a Twitter problem? I present to you Kevin Durant as one of the most in his feelings, in his head, Twitter fingers are red hot on social media, and is a part of the first team to get eliminated in the basketball postseason. I watched that game last night from start to finish just with my mouth wide open because I could not believe that they were going to go down bad this way. But it seems, especially when you talk about a sport where star power seems to overwhelm, seems to cover up so much, for them to poop themselves on such a public stage at home in front of an audience that, was already skeptical of them, as the title favorites in the preseason to peter out is one of the most embarrassing performances we have ever seen by a professional sports franchise. I can't think of another one. Locally, I know people will bring up the Tennessee Titans first round. You're the top team in the AFC, 3 interceptions in the divisional round, and you go home and nobody thinks much of you, and everybody who said that you were the worst 1 seed in the history of professional football, blah, 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 blah. Those guys get to be right. Those guys and girls get to be right for a day. But Tennessee, the Titans were never expected to be the Super Bowl champion. They were never at any point the Super Bowl favorites. I can't think of a bigger collapse.
Brooklyn is the first preseason title favorite in the last 35 years to not win a single playoff game.
In basketball.
Correct.
You would think that Kevin Durant, especially after experiencing the Scott Brooks situation in OKC, you would think that Kevin Durant would have a deeper understanding for the fact that coaching actually matters in the NBA. When you go from Scott Brooks to Steve Kerr and then to Steve Nash, Steve Nash is he's playing 6 guys the entire series. He won't lengthen his bench at all. Completely outcoached. And you sit there watching this, and I was laughing yesterday because Lucas sent me a clip of Stephen A. Smith losing his damn mind on Ben Simmons. Now, these are 2 separate situations, even though Ben Simmons is a part of the Brooklyn Nets, because the storylines there are laugh-out-loud funny all year long. But I thought, after I watched Stephen A., it's been so long since we've seen him return to form that way. Like, just the height of sports talk gas baggery. It was beautiful. It was like watching Picasso paint. He was an artist, Stephen A. was yesterday. To watch that become an even bigger catastrophe than it already has been for all of the different reasons that the Brooklyn Nets have been a problem this year, and not in the good way. Not a problem on the basketball court. Kyrie shows you one night he can give you 42, and the rest of it, Boston just locks them up. And Kevin Durant's going to get his points, but he wasn't even the best player in that series. Not by a mile.
Right, it was Grant Williams. I agree.
You're the worst. Can I hear Stephen A. Smith lose his mind on Ben Simmons? Because that was the highlight of all of this. This happened yesterday before they ended up getting eliminated from the playoffs. The first team in the NBA to get eliminated from the playoffs. A 4-0 sweep by the Boston Celtics. And Stephen A., he wanted blood. He wanted to come for their necks, and he did so yesterday on First Take.
Nobody is worse than Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons might also be the weakest, most pathetic excuse for a professional athlete we have ever seen in not just American history, but the history of sports. I can't think of a professional athlete that has come across more pathetic than this man. Friday on Countdown, what did I say? They came out with the news. They said Ben Simmons going to play game 4. I said, excuse me, it's 72 hours from now.
I'll wait. I'll wait.
I said, I'll wait. It's 72 hours from now. Come to me Monday, because that brother ain't playing. You know why? Because if you're going to play for game 4, why wouldn't you play for Saturday's game 3? It's 2-0. You see what Boston's doing to your teammates. If you got anything, that's the game you wanted to be in, not when you down 3-0. There's no way in hell he was going to play tonight. And I'm telling you something right now. As a result, there's certain facts that need to be thrown out there. He's on the bench, Molly. Green one day, orange the next, got on pink shades, looking like Zoolander and all of this other. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, this brother he'll put Fabio to shame. I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is what the hell he has done. And got the nerve knowing he hasn't played any NBA minutes this year more than me or you, or Molly for that matter. Got the audacity to be filing a grievance to recoup $20 million. Because I don't give a damn how James Harden doesn't look like James Harden in Houston. Still can ball, still can give you 20 and 10, all right, but he's not the James Harden in Houston. I don't give a damn. He could average 5 points, and he's a better product than Ben Simmons. That's how pathetic Ben Simmons is right now.
It made me so happy when you sent me that clip yesterday.
Ran back the clock on that one.
It's been so long since we've gotten that kind of heat from Stephen A. Smith. Reborn. Now, he's no Chris Mad Dog Russo. I mean, for obvious reasons.
Say that to me. Say that to anybody. Say it to somebody.
But Stephen A. came for Ben Simmons' neck. And then what did they do in response, the Brooklyn Nets? They peed down their leg.
I laughed so hard at the report. I think it was Woj saying Ben Simmons targeting a game 7 or 8 return. Or I'm sorry, game 6 or 7. There's no game 8.
Well, no, I saw a couple people making it a joke, targeting a game 7 or a game 8 return.
I was like, buddy, there ain't going to be a game 7.
It is unbelievable to see that happen. Anyway, I wanted to start with that off the top because there is just I've never seen anything like that in my sports life. Truly, I have not. But draft is the thing that most people are starting to get a fervor about. So I would like to proclaim my love for one draft prospect, my NFL draft crush. I'll tell you who that is, and you're certainly welcome to weigh in. 615-737-1045. Tell you who my draft crush is coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Now, it's my understanding that our friends at Spring Hill AC are going to help us give away a couple of Preds tickets, 4 Preds tickets, in fact. We'll do them during Winners and Losers coming up next. The best winner that you guys give us and the best loser will give you a pair of Preds tickets tonight, the regular season finale, against the Calgary Flames, which will be hugely exciting. And we'll get into some Preds stuff later on. Then I'm mistaking this based on what is in front of me, because this says the regular season finale, but it is in fact not the regular season finale.
It's the last home game of the year.
Okay, well, that's important. An important clarification.
Still 3 games left.
All right, thank you. Who do I yell at about that? That's not your fault, is it?
Nope, not my fault.
Okay, I'll yell at somebody else later. Thank you. Got Preds tickets next segment for you, so we'll tell you how to win those. NFL Draft Crush, though, is something that I want to talk about here. Now, let me do this on the front end, because it has nothing to do with the Tennessee Titans. Like, if the guy that lands, if the guy that I tell you is my NFL Draft Crush, if he ends up landing with the Tennessee Titans, gravy. But, I've got Greg Cosell. Every Wednesday we do the podcast together. Greg is through, I think, like 380 prospects. I would be lying to you if I told you I watched more than 100 of these players, because there's just so much. And frankly, it's tough to get a lot of film on a lot of these guys, especially when you're talking about, FCS players and smaller schools, group of fives and things like that. Like, this stuff isn't just readily available. So I try to do as much draft prep as humanly possible, but I'm doing about a third of what, like, Rhett Bryan and Coach Mack and Cosell and everybody else is doing. So I want to know from you, 615-737-1045, who is your NFL draft crush in this draft? It could be for the Tennessee Titans, if you so desire. It does not have to have anything to do with the Tennessee Titans if you do not want it to. I'm going to completely alleviate the Tennessee Titans from this part of the conversation. Like Jackson Stevenson tweets us and says, my draft crush is Bailey Zappi. Whether the Titans draft him or not, he's a fellow WKU alum. Well, okay, and you can do it that way if you want to. Like, if it's your favorite player from your alma mater or your favorite player from your favorite college football team, you're entirely entitled to do that. Now, I am less enchanted with Bailey Zappi, although I understand that he's a pro prospect. I don't think that he's going to offer much at the next level. I'm not considering him as somebody who, for example, say sitting there in the 5th, and the Tennessee Titans could use an upgrade at the backup quarterback position. Yeah, maybe you go get Bailey Zappi because he's going to push Logan Woodside a little bit. But as far as like starting caliber NFL quality, that is not the Western Kentucky quarterback.
He'll get his opportunity.
To do what? What do you mean?
Zappi?
Yeah.
He'll get an opportunity.
To do what? To start?
To make a team.
Well, yeah, he's going to make a team. He's going to be drafted. But
that's what I mean.
Okay.
If the Titans don't, he's going to get an opportunity.
Well, I mean, he could probably get an opportunity to play at some point, right? I've seen how many for God's sakes, the Denver Broncos started a wide receiver at quarterback a couple of years ago. He played
for the Broncos, at least started a few games in the last few years.
Right? So if you can physically throw a football with some kind of efficiency, and even if you can't, you too could potentially get a start in the NFL.
Can you throw a football?
What was that poor wide receiver's name? I felt so bad for him.
Yeah. Oh, man. We were talking about this the other day, too. And what was the number of quarterbacks that they've had start a game since Peyton Manning left?
Oh, it's been an ungodly amount. And, like, the list is just filled with all kinds of terrible quarterbacking. Just it'll really, really depress you when one of the better ones is Trevor Siemian, who, of course, wasn't good enough to be anything more than the COVID quarterback here in Tennessee.
Kendall Hinton.
That's
right.
And they got, I think,
Played the Saints.
Pretty well handled by the New Orleans Saints in that game. So, it may not go well, but you may very well get the opportunity to start an NFL game. Anyway, 615-737-1045. Who's your NFL draft crush this year? So, for me, I went a little unconventional. Now, I'm not going to give you a first-round pick. I'm not going to give you – this is a name. If you are a draft nut, if you're a draft junkie, then you may have heard the name of Troy Anderson, the linebacker from Montana State. Now, I had not. I'd be lying to you, again, if I told you I watched a ton of Montana State during the course of Troy Anderson's career. But before I was getting ready to go down the Senior Bowl, we had talked to Coach Dave McGinnis about this. And Mac had called me, I think it was the Friday or like right before I was getting ready to leave. He goes, listen, you're going to go to Mobile for the first time. If you're going to be around the scouts and the executives and the general managers and the coaches at the Senior Bowl, you can't sound like an idiot. So I'm going to give you a couple of names outside of the conventions of, the 4 best quarterbacks and the 5 best defensive ends and the 3 top offensive tackles, right? Like you got to know, you got to have a little depth to you. Otherwise, you're going to look like a fool. I said, all right, Mac, lay it on me. So he gave me a list of players. One of those players was Troy Anderson, this linebacker from Montana State. Now, do the Titans need an inside linebacker? No, not particularly. I don't know where exactly Troy Anderson will get drafted. I would imagine that at best he would be a day 2 pick, but that remains to be seen. Perhaps an NFL scouting staff or an NFL general manager or organization has taken a shine to him. But he's arguably, when I've watched, and again, watched about 100 players at this point, getting ready for as much draft as humanly possible on my end of things. And then we bring in a lot smarter people to help me for the 250 other draft prospects that I'm not going to have a chance to get to before this thing goes down on Thursday. But I think that Troy Anderson is probably the most versatile player that I watched on tape this year. There was a lot of impact that he had. And it's not just, when I say versatility, it's not just as far as defense. He played at Montana State, quarterback, running back, and then ultimately, how he'll project in the NFL, he'll be a linebacker at the next level. But if you are looking for something that can offer you anything different in this era where, who's Taysom Hill, the quarterback / tight end, I think he's now officially a tight end with the New Orleans Saints. If you have a good enough player that can give you a package of plays that can be worked to your advantage, why would you not take advantage of that? Now, I don't need to pay that particular player like Taysom Hill is getting paid, which is really, really well. But when you watch this guy, he does offer some two-way ability if you want to create some packages for him offensively. He's hugely athletic. He's got a great sense of urgency. And in the NFL, we're tackling, just simple tackling, wrap-up tackling, is at such a premium, he makes you feel pretty good about his ability to wrap up in those moments. I love and loved watching Troy Anderson on tape ahead of the draft, and I think that he's going to be an impact player both defensively and special teams at the next level. I have no idea where he's going to end up. I don't think the Tennessee Titans need him. But just as far as draft crushes go, Troy Anderson out of Montana State was the guy for me. And if you want to, and if you are a draft junkie and you want to learn a little bit more about Troy Anderson, go watch this. If you can find on YouTube, which is where I found it, the Montana State versus South Dakota State game from this season, you will see the kind of versatility and ability that this young man showed on tape. Troy Anderson out of Montana State is my NFL draft crush. You got one, Lucas?
My NFL draft crush is Titans related. It's who I would want the Titans to take with the 26th pick. It's Zion Johnson, the former roommate of Tyler Vrabel, right?
Yep.
At Boston College.
That's accurate.
Not a raw developmental prospect that you're going to have to sort of sit behind somebody for a year or two. Zion Johnson could plug and play at left guard immediately for the Titans, which is obviously a need going into this season. This last line from Dane Brugler in The Beast, his unbelievably ridiculous comprehensive breakdown of every draft prospect that exists.
Pretty exhaustive.
The last line, he has the talent to carve out a decade-long career as an interior NFL blocker. Checks all the boxes, run blocking, pass blocking, size. This man's added 100 pounds to his frame since his senior year of high school. Zion Johnson is my draft crush.
Well, and he's played a couple of different positions. We're talking about that kind of versatility. In fact, Lucas, could you find for me the clip that the Chargers tweeted out on their social media account. We'll get to your phone calls on this here in just a second if you want to weigh in with your NFL draft crush. But the Chargers tweeted a clip from their general manager, Tom Telesco, yesterday about the draft process because as Brugler has outlined, and it's entirely possible that Zion Johnson become a 10-year pro and plays at a high level and makes it to Pro Bowls and all of these different things. But I thought there was a line from Tom Telesco yesterday that the Chargers tweeted out that I really, really thought was important for people to hear. Because as we watch these guys and as we get ready to see where they'll land, geography and deployment are the two most important things. Not necessarily the tape that they had in college, although obviously the tape helps or hurts, depending on how good or how bad it is. There are a number of different factors that people try to use to project what these guys will be at the next level in the NFL. And frankly, if it is geographically not the best landing spot, say, you're picking at the top of the NFL draft and you're considered by many to be a generational talent and you're going to be the first overall pick, a great honor that comes with a fantastic paycheck and the potential to make generational wealth for your family and your family's family on after that. But you're going to a terrible team. You're going to the worst team in the league. You're going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you know what? Transcendent talent, Trevor Lawrence, you're going to look like hell in your rookie season because you have little to no support and they're having to play young players who are not ready for the NFL immediately. The first overall pick, the 5th overall pick, the 10th overall pick. Just because these are hugely talented players does not mean that they are ready. None of these guys are going to be ready for their first NFL game. You can do everything humanly possible to prepare, but you don't know what this thing is going to look like until you see live action in a third down situation and you're up against Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson on the other side of you, and you got to get that third down stop. That's the real life experience that we have no way to project. And this line from Tom Telesco yesterday, I thought was pretty interesting. Lucas, you're not able to find it?
There's like 6 different ones, so I have no idea.
Oh, really? Okay, so is there one that says that's your opinion? Because that's the one that I want. Forgive me. I did not realize that they tweeted out a series of Tom Telesco. I had no idea Tom Telesco was this quotable, that the Chargers social media team would be pumping out all manner of that stuff. But I watched this clip yesterday, and I was laughing out loud because I could not imagine John Robinson getting up in front of Titans media, in front of Titans fans, and giving a line like this. But while we wait for that clip, let's go to Michael in Gallatin, who wants to weigh in with his NFL draft crush. Hello, Michael.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Actually, I've got 2. One of them is from Tennessee, which is Alontae Taylor. I like him just because of the story of him staying through all the Jeremy Pruitt bull crap that he pulled and just staying the course and not quitting on his team and transferring out like some of the other guys did. And then the other guy is a guy I actually went to high school with, Jordan Mason, out of Georgia Tech. He's a running back. He may not get drafted, but I think he'll fight his way on as an undrafted rookie, and he'll make it somewhere. So those are my 2 guys.
Appreciate the call, Michael. 615-737-1045. Yeah, I have not had the opportunity to watch Jordan Mason yet out of Georgia Tech. It looks, just kind of pulling up his name and looking at the analysis on the Draft Network and in Dane Brugler's Beast, it does not look like he has a draftable grade, but it would be a name to keep an eye out on. So Michael may have tipped us off to a player who may go on to have some kind of a career in the NFL. And this is really like, we all get obsessed with the first round, right? And the first round is just one player. Just one player. There are so many other players that end up making a more substantial impact collectively than the first round pick. But that's the easiest point of conversation. That's the lowest common denominator, which drives me crazy about the pre-draft conversation. But I want you to hear this line from Tom Telesco about his thoughts on the draft process, about, how much time we all spend talking and studying and doing all the legwork, when in reality, we have no idea what's going to happen with these guys.
Just try not to overthink it. I mean, we're trying to evaluate football players. We realize it's just not an exact science. Like we can spend hours trying to rank players, but there's no like official ranking of players. There just isn't. That's why when I hear like this player was a reach or this player was a great value, it doesn't make sense to me. That's just your opinion of where you thought that player should be drafted, and he was either drafted lower or higher. You know, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. So if you go back and look at drafts, pick any draft and look how they were drafted and then look how their pro careers were, it certainly didn't go from one to whatever. It just doesn't. So, we put a lot of work into this. We kind of get players in groups in different areas. Yeah, we'll talk about ranking them, but I don't get too concerned about an exact ranking because who knows, really, who really knows? Now, we do add in a lot of medical and character stuff to kind of affect those rankings. But as far as talent and evaluating the player, it's difficult to have a true ranking. So we get things up there, we get prepared, watch the draft kind of unfold, and let it ride from there.
So that's Tom Telesco, the Chargers general manager. And I imagine John Robinson getting up there in front of us and saying something like that when only 2 of his first-round picks, he's been here since 2016. The only 2 first-round picks that are still on the roster since 2016 are Jeffrey Simmons and Caleb Farley, right? And Jeff is about to get a second contract. He'll be the first John Robinson first-round pick to get a second contract through 6 years as the general manager here. You imagine how many people would lose their damn minds if John Robinson said, you know what, who knows? We do our homework. We do our homework, same as you. But who really knows, you know? You win some, you lose some. And it's truth, but you cannot say that kind of thing publicly, at least if you have the kind of record in the round that fans consider to be the most important round, the thing that the most amount of people are paying attention to, which is the first round. When you've had the kind of hit rate or lack thereof that John has had. It's why when we talked about this yesterday, to open up draft week, there's no greater pressure right now here locally than on John Robinson, than on Thursday night. Because regardless of how rounds 3, given that they don't have a second, how rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6, because they don't have 7th-round picks this year either, regardless of how the rest of those rounds go, John Robinson is very, very much going to be judged, rightly or wrongly, in the court of public perception on the success or failure of that first-round pick. The whole thing is fascinating. I do get draft fatigue sometimes. I'm sure many of you have it as well, where you're just hearing, some collection of names over and over and over again for the last 3 months since the football season ended. Now, it's the closest thing that we have to football, so maybe you'll take what you can get as far as that's concerned. I think we all get a little numb to it after a while. But once these things actually take place, it's near impossible to draw a connection between, all right, this guy was a successful college player. Lucas, would you not say that Isaiah Wilson was a successful college player?
Absolutely.
At the University of Georgia. Isaiah Wilson has not, by any measure, been a successful professional athlete. By any measure. You have no way. You can't do it transitive property. I wish it was that simple. It'd make my life a hell of a lot easier. We'll discuss more of this draft conversation. We'll have Sheil Kapadia of The Athletic and Mike Giardi, who's going to be embedded for the NFL Network. He's going to be embedded at the New York Jets organization. They have, I believe, the Jets have the second pick this year? Again? That can't be so.
No, the Lions do.
The Lions have the second pick. The Texans have the third. Jets are top 5, I want to say. Anyway, Mike Giardi will join us. Sheil Kapadia will as well. We'll do that later in the show. But coming up next, I've got your chance to win a pair of Preds tickets. We're going to give away 4 total, so you have 2 chances to win these Preds tickets with winners and losers of the sports weekend. You give us your winner of the sports weekend. If it happens to be the best, we'll give you a pair of Preds tickets. If you give us the worst of the losers from the sports weekend, you will win a pair of Preds tickets as well. We'll give you ours on the other side. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Smashville 104.5 The Zone has your chance to win 4 tickets to tonight's final regular season game at Bridgestone Arena as the Nashville Predators host the Calgary Flames thanks to Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Just call in to the Buck Reising Show, 615-737-1045. Give us your winners and losers of the weekend for your chance to win.
Let's do it, shall we? Many thanks to Spring Hill AC for making this possible. I've got 2 pairs of tickets to give to you. Winners and losers of the sports weekend is something that we do every Tuesday at this time. Lucas, go ahead and open up the circus tent for me, would you? There it is. Who had a successful weekend and who fell through the trap door? 615-737-1045. Who fell flat on their face, flat on their ass? There went the Brooklyn Nets and all of Ben Simmons' dignity. Now let me start the bidding if you would be so kind. Winner of the sports weekend, Kyle Schwarber of the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, they lost 1-0 to the Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday night. Kyle Schwarber was ejected in the 9th inning for arguing balls and strikes as the frustrations boiled over. Now, he struck out looking in the final frame, turned around from home plate to home plate. Umpire Angel Hernandez slammed his bat to the batter's box ground, tossed his helmet, and ultimately ended up getting in Angel Hernandez's face. Joe Giardi, the manager, had to go up and talk to Angel Hernandez after they ejected Schwarber. Basically, the calls on both sides, the strike zone on both sides, was horrendous. Angel Hernandez is a plague, and I'm very happy to see a fellow Hoosier in Kyle Schwarber stick up for himself and for all of the professional baseball players who Angel Hernandez has wronged. Winner of the sports weekend is Kyle Schwarber for the way that he handled his business. Now, while Lucas is on the phone fielding your phone calls, I'll go ahead and give you my loser because it happens to have a local tie. My loser of the sports weekend is Nashville sports media. Anybody in Nashville sports media who, with a serious face, voice, platform, or otherwise, got in front of a microphone or a camera last week and said that Ryan Tannehill and his sponsored Celsius post is an offense, is a slap in the face to Titans fans, made it a bigger deal than anything like that should ever have been from a stock photo image of him on a fishing boat because, he didn't show up for the first day of work in voluntary off-season program. Loser of the sports weekend, Nashville media, who made that a bigger story, who made it any kind of a story in ways that were just objectively bad. In fact, we have a clip from Austin Huff, do we not, of Corked Bats, who lit Nashville sports media on fire. Any one of these knuckle draggers who was doing so. And I don't know if any of them happen to reside on this particular radio station, but if you do, I'm talking about you. Let me hear the Corked Bat sound.
We're back. Welcome back into 103.3 The Sideline. We were talking about who else other than Ryan Tannehill, or as Big Raz likes to call him, crying over the hill.
Yeah, that's what I call him. That's what I call him.
Oh, man, I tell you what, I have had it up to here with this guy. I mean, can you believe this guy? The gall of him to use social media. Just completely tone deaf. Just posting literally anything to social media when he should be at voluntary workouts.
Hey, didn't you miss the company?
Even though I chose not to go to the company outing at the minor league baseball game last week. Yeah. I mean, this man posted a photo to social media, and it makes me sick. This is coming from a guy who works in sports talk radio, which means my social media game is already probably horrendous.
Social media, it's the devil. It's the devil. That's why I'm not on it.
He's fishing on a boat. I'm sorry, what? Last I checked, voluntary OTAs weren't happening at sea, Captain. And sure, it was a sponsored post, meaning that photo was probably taken weeks ago, but just posted now. But the optics are terrible.
So, that's Austin Huff on Cork Bats making fun of sports talk media here in Nashville who thought it worthy to go after Ryan Tannehill for a sponsored Instagram post. Idiotic. Let's go with Zach in Hendersonville, who has a winner of the sports weekend that he would like to assign for a chance to win a pair of Preds tickets to tonight's game against the Calgary Flames. Who you got, Zach?
I'm just grateful I didn't call into 103.3 The Sideline. But anyway, I will say Tony Vitello and his villains were definitely the winners. He picked up a nice broom down at Lowe's and brought it straight to Gainesville and took care of his business. And I'm so grateful for a team that is exciting, and Tennessee should be proud of what they have. But anyways, the loser, and I didn't mention this, but it's definitely Simmons, no doubt. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks for the call, Zach. 615-737-1045. Yeah, Tony V and the Tennessee Baseballs, the most dominant team in the state of Tennessee right now, had themselves a weekend. Spectacular, dramatic fashion against the Florida Gators. Lucas, you want to do yours quickly while you have a break from the phones?
Winner of the weekend is the Nashville Sounds. Took 5 out of 6 games at home against Charlotte this past week. Saturday and Sunday games were sellouts. As far as what happened on the field, an inside-the-park grand slam, something that I have never seen in my life, that I probably never will see again in my life. Ran into Mickey Ryan at the game, noted baseball fan. He said he has never seen an inside-the-park grand slam
I've never seen one in person.
Hit by Alex Jackson right down the left field line, and it just kind of nestled into the Sounds bullpen where the outfielder for the Knights put his hands up like he wanted a ground rule double. The ump said, nope, ball's right there. You could have played it, and everybody came around and came home. No errors, no nothing. By the way, the Sounds haven't committed an error in over 88 minutes of
really
play.
good.
They're 13-5. It's the best record in the International League. My loser of the weekend, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oof.
Arguably the most incompetent duo of general manager and owner, have no idea who they want to take with the first overall pick. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Let's see if Donnie in Columbia can top you with his winner of the sports weekend. What you got, Donnie? Oh, guess we don't have Donnie. Donnie waited. Donnie didn't get the chance to give his nominee. Let's try Rick in Hendersonville. Rick, save us here.
I'm going to try. My winner of the weekend, if Monday is considered to be part of the weekend, shout out to the Ridgetop Beer Runners.
Okay.
They won the second half of the tournament yesterday.
What tournament is that?
That would be your tournament. 104.5 The Zone golf tournament.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Now, I did not stay for the awards. Thank you for the call, Rick. 615-737-1045 is how you call for winners and losers of the sports weekend for a chance to win a pair of Preds tickets to tonight's home finale against the Calgary Flames. The Ridgetop Beer Runners, who claimed victory over Brett Kern, Brent Doherty, Ron Slay, and Keith Bullock in the 104.5 The Zone golf tournament. I know Brett was pretty butthurt about that, but he was having to carry Slay around the course apparently all day, and then somebody had to carry Slay back to the set where we were doing the live broadcast because, after a day of drinking on the golf course, old Slay was banged up. Look better than Lucas this morning, though. Ramel is in Nashville. He's got a loser of the sports weekend, and then we'll give away the tickets officially. What you got, Ramel?
Well, Buck, you are officially my loser of the week. You want to go on Twitter and complain about New Nashville ruining your bar experience and whatever. But I don't want to hear that. You are New Nashville. You are a transplant. I don't want to hear that crap. And on top of that, not to let your business out, but my guy, you had Indiana tags up until last year, so I don't want to hear that. I see around Baptist Sports Park all the time. I work around that area. So, yeah, you are my loser of the week. I don't want to hear that crap, especially coming from you.
That's laugh out loud funny. Thank you, Ramel. That's really good. I did. I need to explain myself now. Now, for full context, I have Tennessee tags. I've been living here for 7 years. But I had a situation where I had to borrow my sister's car for a period of time. She has Indiana tags. She's currently a freshman in college. My car was under duress until Two Rivers Ford hooked me up with my new car. So, yes, I was driving a car with Indiana plates to the facility on a regular basis. Look at Ramel doing the scouting work. I did complain because, quote-unquote, New Nashville took over my favorite bar.
What's the meme of the guy in the hot dog suit? We're all trying to find the guy who did this. That's you.
It's, you know what? I'll defend myself on this. Coming up next, we will award the winners for the Preds tickets, 2 pairs, to see the Preds take on the Calgary Flames in the home season finale at Bridgestone Arena tonight. We'll tell you who won coming up next, and then I'll explain myself because, I deserve to be dragged.
It is 11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. 2 days away from the 2022 NFL Draft in Las Vegas and had some movement on Monday. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting the Patriots have traded their 5th-round pick to the Texans for Houston's 6th and 7th-round picks. Nashville Soccer Club announced today 3 new minority owners in media investor Jim Toth, actress and Nashville native Reese Witherspoon, and Titans running back Derrick Henry. Nashville SC opens up Geodis Park on Sunday against Philadelphia Union after an 8-game road trip to start the season. In the NBA, one series came to an end on Monday. The Boston Celtics swept the Brooklyn Nets, winning Game 4, 116-112. The Nets, the only preseason title favorite in the NBA in the last 35 years to not win a single postseason game. Tonight, the first-round series between Grizzlies and Timberwolves returns to FedEx Forum in Memphis, tied up at 2 games apiece. Tip-off is at 6:30. And it's a huge night for the Nashville Predators' playoff hopes, hosting the Calgary Flames in Bridgestone Arena, the final regular season home game of the year. A 7 p.m. puck drop with 3 games to go. A Preds win in regulation tonight would clinch a playoff spot, as would a Vegas loss to Dallas, also in regulation. For all your foundation repair, waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone on this Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a spectacular day so far. If you've been hanging out with us, we appreciate you spending your time from 10 to 1 with us on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica is back there making it happen. Sheil Kapadia of The Athletic will be here in just about 15 minutes from now, and we'll get into some draft conversation. Ian Ayre, CEO of the Nashville Soccer Club, going to be our guest at 11:45. He's just gotten he's gotten 3 new minority owners to the soccer club. One of them who plays for the Tennessee Titans. Talk to Ian about that in just a little while. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. 615-737-1045 is how you do that. Now, Lucas, we gave 2 pairs of tickets to see the Nashville Predators tonight in their final home game at Bridgestone Arena before the postseason begins. Perhaps they'll even make it in. Who did we give the tickets to?
Congrats to Ramal, who called in saying that you are the loser of the weekend for blaming New Nashville for taking over one of your favorite bars.
So Ramel wins the tickets for blaming me, for assigning me as the loser of the sports weekend.
That's right.
So, should I explain? And then we'll do a Panzica Preds minute because this is a critical game. In fact, there are, Lucas has DM'd me earlier today, a bunch of different scenarios for the Nashville Predators and what it will take, their clinching scenarios for them to get into the postseason, because remember, they have not yet done that with 4 games remaining.
It's playoff scenario time.
So, we'll do that momentarily. But here's why I'm the loser of the sports weekend. So, I'll pull up the tweet to be exact, because I want, if we're going to drag me, I think we ought to drag me correctly. I went out on Saturday night, I believe it was, and I have been, this was my last free weekend. NFL Draft is about to overtake everything in my life. Soon we will have rookie minicamp, mandatory minicamp, training camp. We'll get a break from the NFL this summer, and that's when I'll take the bulk of my vacation. But football season is upon us, and this was my last weekend to, let loose a little bit. So I went to my favorite bar, and my favorite bar is, we circle with this, no free ads. So I guess we cannot name the favorite bar that I have, but it's in Germantown because I live right around the area. Live about 0.5 from this bar. It's one of my favorites because I can walk home and to the bar if I so desire. And, if I want to take an Uber and be lazy, then I can do that too. But either way, so I got on Twitter. It wasn't that late in the evening. Like, I couldn't have been too intoxicated. Lucas, have you ever drunk tweeted before?
Never.
Well, that's because you're professional. It turns out I do it quite a bit. Mistake. So I tweeted at 7:14 p.m. on Saturday night. Again, not very early in the evening. I'll never forgive New Nashville for infecting my favorite bar. Immediately, I was dragged across the surface of the sun because I was very soon reminded that no, you, my friend, are the disease. You are New Nashville. I think V-Love said that I deserve to have Prince's hot chicken dust poured in my eyes.
Well,
for you deserve to be dredged in Prince's hot chicken mix.
Dredged,
for this.
So makes it so much worse.
Is what?
V-Love is the arbitrator of such things.
Well, V-Love is the gatekeeper for what gets to be. So I want to know at what point New Nashville, like, what's the cutoff here? Because I'm coming up on 7 years in August. All right. But the reason that I felt comfortable putting that out there, other than the, several tequila drinks that I'd had in my system at that point, the reason why I was comfortable putting that out there is I can't find anybody who I meet at this point. I can't find people who've been here 2 months. I can't find people who have been here for a calendar year because of the rate of growth that we're experiencing. So I thought, I can now say that I've been in Middle Tennessee for the better part of a decade, which is incredibly pretentious sounding type of thing, right? Citing my credentials. But I completely understand that I am a part of the problem. I am a part of New Nashville, even though I have been here longer than Acme Feed and Seed, which makes me feel even more confident in my position.
The majority of your coworkers have been here for many, many, many years.
But I'm talking about people that I meet on a day-to-day basis, Lucas. I cannot find, I moved down here 2 weeks ago. The Xfinity guy came to my house the other day. Again, no free ads. The Xfinity guy came to my house the other day because my internet had crapped out. And he said, I just came down here from Seattle 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Every time I get in an Uber, I moved down here last month. Anytime I go to my favorite bar, how long have you been in town? We came down about 6 months ago. And this bar, my favorite bar, has been completely overtaken by people from New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. And this is all well and good. This is the economic growth and health of our city, and I am glad for it. I am happy for it. And I do say our city because I consider this to be home, even if you guys don't consider me to be. I'm not a native. I'm a local, not a native. There's a difference. But as far as this is concerned, I put this out there after a couple of tequila drinks, and I was dragged. So I want to know, what's the cutoff? What's the cutoff for New Nashville? When did New Nashville become a thing?
Poll question?
Yeah, put it on the poll at Buck Reising. So I think we have 17 up today. At Buck Reising is where you can vote on the poll because I want to know if I'm justified in this or not. If I've been here for the better part of 10 years, am I allowed to say this? Or am I just another one of these slaps that has come into your city as a transplant and completely taken over the place that you call home and that you love? Because I don't begrudge you any kind of ill will if you are somebody who thinks that I'm full of bleep. And, largely I am. But I did not expect to be just absolutely overcome with people like you idiot. Look in the mirror. What do you mean? You are the problem. You are the disease.
I think you're New Nashville, but the people you're referring to are New Nashville.
Newer Nashville.
Yes, newer Nashville.
So it's the difference. But so I'm doing a millennials versus a Gen Z conversation, right?
And then soon we'll have newest Nashville.
It's the worst.
And then I don't know what's after that.
It's the worst. Because, the bar itself is only, I don't even think it's 3 years old because it opened up in the middle of COVID. I was the only person in there the night that it opened. It was Christmas Eve night. I didn't go home. I never go home for Christmas because the Titans usually have, it's a game week. There will be practice in some form or fashion. We'll have a press conference in all likelihood. I spend my vacation or my holidays with your local professional football team. But so I remember being in there by myself the first night that it opened on Christmas Eve night and thinking this is the greatest place. I hope nobody ever finds it. And then, about 6 months later, it's where everybody takes their hinge dates. It's the worst. It's just the worst. You get claustrophobic in there. And I love this place. I will continue to go to this place. And people are now texting me, what bar is it? But if I say it on the radio, then yet more people will come to the bar. I don't want that to happen. I'm actively trying to avoid that. Have you experienced this with you? Because you are as close to a local as we have, all right, as far as the show is concerned. Because you're not born in Nashville.
I wasn't born in Nashville.
Born in Nashville, but grew up in Birmingham.
Went to high school in Birmingham.
Okay, but born in Nashville. So you're a Nashville native. Have you experienced this with your favorite bar, where it's been completely overtaken by these mouth breathers?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's multiple places where that's the case, but, it is what it is. Diamond Rio fan says that we should make this determination after the Tennessee Geography Bee this summer, and Puka has declared that New Nashville is anything post-2010.
If the Geography Bee is the test for me to pass my Nashville citizenship, I'm going to fail. Because the pronunciations are just ridiculous.
Well, you did better than expected last year, so we'll see with a year of prep how much better you are.
Well, because I thought, what is the polar opposite of the way that this thing should be announced?
Right.
And then I landed on the correct pronunciation and was shocked by the fact that it's Lebanon, not Lebanon. Anyway, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. You want to do a Panzika Preds minute?
Yeah, real quick.
In about a minute?
Let's just go over the clinching scenarios for tonight. It's the last regular season home game in Bridgestone Arena playing the Calgary Flames, with the Preds beaten shootout, I think, a week ago to the day, and is, at this point, their most likely first-round playoff opponent if the Preds can hang on to that first wildcard spot in the West. Here's what needs to happen for the Preds to clinch a playoff berth tonight. Simplest one, just beat Calgary in regulation.
Yeah.
No overtime, just win in 3 periods.
That would be the easiest.
If they defeat Calgary in overtime and Vegas falls to Dallas in regulation, then the Preds will clinch. If the Preds defeat Calgary in a shootout and Vegas falls to Dallas in regulation or overtime, the Preds clinch. If they get 1 point against Calgary in overtime loss and Vegas loses to Dallas in any fashion, Preds will clinch, or if Vegas loses to Dallas in regulation.
So beat the Flames.
Beat the Flames.
Be done with this. Mm-hmm. Beat the Flames, and then don't stress about Colorado to it's not the season finale. The season finale is at Arizona. But you don't have to stress about Colorado if you beat Calgary.
Well, then the attention turns to hanging on to that first wild card spot so you can avoid playing Colorado in the first round.
Yes, but the goal is the postseason.
Yeah, just get in.
Get into the postseason, win your final home game, and make us all feel a hell of a lot better. Listen, Philip Forsberg scoring 40 goals in a season, tremendous. I heard Chris Mason on the broadcast make the joke Philip 40sburg, and it made me want to come through the television and smack him. But it made me laugh. It's a terrible dad joke. Mickey Ryan brand of dad joke. Sheil Kapadia of The Athletic is going to join us coming up next to get into all the ins and outs of the NFL draft. There's been some new developments as far as the quarterbacks are concerned. We'll tell you what that is with Sheil coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
All right, it's draft week. Everybody's excited. 2 days away from the NFL's version of Christmas Day, whether that's free agency for you or the NFL draft. Either way, new players, new teams, very exciting stuff. Now, if you want to get nuts, I'd invite you to go to theathletic.com today, where our next guest, Sheil Kapadia, has put together exactly how things will play out in the first round of the NFL draft. Sheil joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. What's going on, man?
That's right. Look into the crystal ball, fire off some takes. That's what draft season is about. So I do that every year. Hit on some, miss on many more, but that's what makes it fun.
It's 3 months of that, Sheil. It's takes flying all over the place. Emery Hunt at CBS Sports had a funny tweet yesterday about just the cycle that we all go through, from combine doesn't matter to combine matters. 20 first-round locks to only 3 players who are worth a first-round grade. When you put this together, because I imagine it's a fun exercise, but if you're going to do it, and as you do with any of your work at theathletic.com, well worth your subscription for great sports journalism being done there by Sheil and his colleagues, I imagine that you're going to take the time to come up with the scenarios that are plausible, even down to trade scenarios, which you have included in this. That seems like it would be a bit of a suffering, Sheil.
Yeah, it's a bit of a suffering, but you just look at kind of where each team is going into this draft, and that's what makes it so interesting, is that a team like the Packers, they have a very different timeline than a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so you try to take all of that into account. Are there GMs who go into this thing thinking, man, if I don't nail this, this is going to be my last draft, and I'm not going to be around next year. So you take all those dynamics into account, which teams are kind of playing for next off season, which teams have a lot of draft capital to use, which ones might need to, kind of get some more picks. I think the Miami Dolphins have just 4 picks in this draft after the Tyreek Hill trade. So yeah, you throw it all into a pot, mix it up, and then figure out what you want to come up with.
It's laugh out loud funny to read this thing through, because Sheil goes, by timestamp, like from 8. So we're on Central Time for the purposes of the Nashville audience. So it's 7:04 p.m. Eastern Time, or Central Time. Sheil is predicting exactly the conversations going back and forth between Jags general manager Trent Baalke and the people who were responsible for submitting the card. It goes, how the dysfunction in Jacksonville, Sheil, like, you can't make this up. Not just back-to-back first overall picks in consecutive drafts. I'm certain it's not even the first time that they've done that, but the idea that the general manager and the ownership are in conflict about which player they want to take with the top pick this year, it writes itself.
They find new ways to screw this up year in and year out. Think about last offseason. I remember last season ends, the 2020 season ends, and I looked at it and I go, wow, they've got nice draft capital. They've got cap space. They can just start this thing over with a clean slate, and they're going to get Trevor Lawrence. This is a nice spot to be in. Like, if you were a GM looking for a job, this would be a nice spot to be in. And then what do? They hire Urban Meyer. We know how that went last year. And then, you fire Urban Meyer and say, all right, maybe they learned their lesson this year. They're going to start fresh again. And they couldn't even do that. They had to hold on to Trent Baalke as their GM, and then they bring in Doug Peterson. So now all of a sudden, if you're Doug Peterson, you're going into a situation going, wait, the GM already has the owner's ear. The GM just survived the Urban Meyer era, and now this is a little bit of a strange setup. And so they find new ways year in and year out to screw it up. They haven't had the off-field issues in terms of ownership like a franchise like Washington. But if you just want to look at sort of since Shad Khan bought the team and the lack of success they've had, they struggle to win. I think they've won more than 6 games like once in 10 or 12 years, which you think about the NFL and how it's set up for you to really never do that, and they've still found a way to do it. So, it's kind of fun that they have the number 1 pick here, and we're, a little more than 48 hours away, and no one really seems to know what they're going to do with that pick.
It's delightful. Sheil Kapadia of The Athletic is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. At Sheil Kapadia is where you can follow him. Of course, theathletic.com is where you can read all of the great work that he does year-round covering the NFL. So which scenario, as you worked through this latest edition of, I don't even want to call it a mock draft, it's It's just it's the exact order of events that is going to come. You don't even have to watch the draft if you read Sheil's great work. But which scenario was the most fun for you to prognosticate in this piece, Sheil?
I think the Packers moving up in the first round almost seems like it's destined to happen, or, Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the phone with the GM and the powers that be there if it doesn't happen. I mean, you look at their offseason and trading Devontae Adams. You look at the Devontae Adams trade and the Tyreek Hill trade. Those, to me, were very different. The Tyreek Hill trade I could really understand from the Chiefs' perspective. They look at it and say, all right, we've got to come up with our kind of second iteration of what we're going to be with Patrick Mahomes. We don't want to pay him that kind of money. Let's figure this out. That, to me, was reasonable because they're looking at a window that could be 7, 8, 10 years, whatever, with Patrick Mahomes. The Packers situation is completely different. I mean, you're talking about a team that's been one of the best teams in the NFL over the last 2 years, but their quarterback is 38 years old. And so, it is win now time, urgency time. You can't look ahead to 2 or 3 years down the road because you don't know how long Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to sustain his play at this level. So I had the Packers trading up there in the first round and really trying to find a wide receiver. I think I had them, landing Chris Olave, the Ohio State wide receiver there with the 15th pick, moving up from number 22. And then remember, the Packers still have another first-round pick. So then I had them taking actually another wide receiver, Jahan Dotson from Penn State, later in the first round. But to me, those two teams that I mentioned, the Packers and Chiefs, are really interesting because both two teams have a lot of draft capital. Both two teams feel like they can win the Super Bowl this year. And, we're going to see if either of them or both of them decide to move up and target somebody in the first round.
So to bring it local, Sheil, Ryan Tannehill is decidedly not Aaron Rodgers, although the 2019 and 2020 seasons he tried to do his best impression of a quarterback with that kind of efficiency and ability. He is not irreplaceable, and yet you have the Tennessee Titans bolstering the offensive line, which is a critical need in a draft with a considerable amount of depth, both at the interior offensive line spots and the tackle position. Why not a quarterback for the Tennessee Titans?
Listen, if they fall in love with one of these quarterbacks and they think the guy, whether it's Desmond Ridder or if Malik Willis falls, if they think one of those guys really has the upside to be the guy to lead them into the next era, then I would have no issue with going ahead and taking them. I just wonder at the place that they're picking whether their evaluations will say, yeah, this is worth it, or whether they'll say, you know what, we signed Ryan Tannehill, we signed Derrick Henry a couple of years ago. Let's give this thing one more shot in 2021 and, draft somebody who can help us in the immediate future, but also can be a part of this team going forward in the long run. And so that's why I gave them Trevor Penning for some offensive line help. I just look at them as a team that probably wants to take one more swing at this thing with the current core. But I would not criticize them if they fall in love. To me, quarterback right now in the NFL, it's all about taking big swings. I mean, if you're shooting just for competency and you're using resources on that, you're making a mistake. Because right now, most of the teams in the NFL, you can talk yourself into them winning 9 or 10 games with their quarterback. Any team right now could have Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. You're not going to be throwing a parade for those guys, but those guys can play on Sunday and, make you around 500 or better than 500 team. I think what you have to do is find these guys who can really elevate everyone around them. And so, again, if they feel like Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, one of those guys falls to them, and they feel like those guys have that ceiling, even though they're not sure they're going to reach that ceiling, then I would not fault them for going with the quarterback.
So I want to read the last graph that you have, and for the rest of it, obviously, go to theathletic.com to read the great work that Sheil does. The broadcast ends on night one with live look-ins from the teams who didn't have a first-round pick. Poolside at a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, LA Rams GM Les Snead rocks an F them picks tank top and tosses the Lombardi trophy to Sean McVay, who grabs it in midair and dunks it into the water. Now, the visual is tremendous, mostly because Les Snead does, in fact, have the F them picks shirt that he wore at their Super Bowl parade. And I don't know, Sheil, if you've seen the latest feature film production that the Rams put out on their social media account this morning. But, I mean, there are 8 teams who are just not sitting out is probably the wrong word, but there's 8 teams in this draft who don't have a first-round pick. Is this something that you think is a trend that we're starting to see that LA has kind of been on the forefront of?
Well, I think teams can't mistake their franchise for the Rams. I mean, the Rams have had a couple big advantages. Number one, their coach, Sean McVay, has shown he can kind of do more with less on offense. Not that they haven't had talent, but, man, they were a top 10 offense with Jared Goff for multiple years. They got to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. That's like the advantage you want from your coaching staff, specifically an offensive coach who can figure out ways to scheme it up. And the other thing that probably doesn't get to, two other things that don't get talked about enough with the Rams. One is they've been incredibly healthy over the last, 2, 3, 4 years, whether you credit their sports science stuff and their training or whatever, or whether it's just a spell of good luck. That has been huge for them. And then number three, I think one thing people forget about the Rams is that it's not like they're not just sitting out the draft completely. If you look at it over the last 5 years, they've made 45 picks in the draft. That's tied for fifth most in the NFL. So do they say, F them picks in the first round? Yeah, absolutely. They acquire veterans and trade those first round picks. But in the middle rounds, they do something really smart, which is they say, let's draft for volume. Let's get a lot of bites at the apple, and let's make sure, we have opportunities to fill out our roster so that it's not just a bunch of stars and then a bunch of guys who can't play. So they found ways to get competent play from a lot of those guys they picked in the middle rounds. And so I think if you're going to give up those first round picks, that's something you absolutely have to do is stock up on those picks in rounds, I would say 2 through 4, 2 through 5.
That seems to be one of the bigger disconnects between people who consume draft coverage and by the people who are actually doing the process of team building through the draft. The value that teams like the Rams have placed on, those day 2, day 3 picks to where they are drafting for volume. Between that and not accounting for, individual teams' philosophies when the vast majority of the coverage is just projecting how player X will fit in system Y. Is that one of the bigger disconnects that you find when you're producing this work and talking to people around the league, and then people are consuming it and kind of going back and forth with you on Twitter?
Yeah, there's a little shift. There's a shift right now, I think, with some teams in the NFL looking at the draft. For many years, I'm sure when you were growing up, when I was growing up, it was, hey, this GM, you can evaluate talent like nobody else in the NFL. This guy knows how to pick players. I mean, I was consuming the draft in the same way, looking at it saying, oh, my gosh, I can't believe, the team I root for, they picked this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. There's been a little bit of a shift to some GMs saying, you know what, we're going to try to find those little edges, and certainly we're going to invest the resources, and we want to be picking the right players, but we're going to go into it with sort of an understanding that there's a randomness involved in this process. I mean, Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, has called the draft a luck-driven process. I don't remember any GM 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, saying anything close to that.
Yeah.
So there are some GMs saying, you know what, we have to go into this with an understanding that there are a lot of variables at play, and this is really hard, and we don't know how hard a guy's going to work when he comes in. We don't know what he's going to be like as a teammate. We don't know what, his character is or what he's got going on in his personal life. We're going to try to find all those things out, but we're going to go into it understanding that we're going to miss on some picks. And so we don't want to be overconfident and say, hey, let's give up 3 picks to move up here in the first round because we're just sure that this defensive end is going to be the defensive player of the year multiple times in his career. Like, you really don't want to think like that. That's where you get into trouble. And I think that's a shift we're seeing, not with all teams, but certainly with some teams going into it with a little more humility, saying let's approach this knowing that we're not going to hit on every pick.
That certainly speaks to what the audio that we played earlier in the radio show today, Sheil, of the Chargers general manager saying the exact same thing. It seems like, people are comfortable, at least NFL executives are comfortable. Some are giving, kind of letting people behind the scenes and being like, hey, we're doing our homework same as you, but there's no way for us to predict with any kind of real accuracy how this stuff is going to pan out. Sheil Kapadia, though, can predict with great accuracy what is going to happen in the first round of the NFL draft. For all of the insights and analysis, theathletic.com is where you go. At Sheil Kapadia is where you follow him for great NFL coverage year-round. Thank you, buddy. I know you're busy right now. I appreciate you spending some time.
All right, Buck. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
That's Sheil Kapadia there with us on 104.5 The Zone. I mean, if John Robinson came to the podium – so I guess the next time we'll probably speak to him is after the first round on Thursday night. And, I'm going to be there, so I'll just use me as the example. I said, hey, John, Seems like a great player. You've explained to us why you picked him, but is there any real way to predict whether this guy is going? How confident do you feel that you've got a 10-year starter, a lock on your, on the left side of your offensive line for years to come? Like if he answered the question, you're like, I don't know. It's just kind of, throws his shoulders up, just kind of gives it a shrug, and be like, we don't.
We'll see.
Just gotta kind of let this thing play out.
Like looks at the player. Looks at Amy, looks at Mike. I don't know.
You guys know? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, people would lose their minds. And yet, that's the reality of the situation. Just something to keep in the back of your head as we go through this draft process. So, since we're talking Tennessee Titans, one Tennessee Titan has just become a minority owner in another professional sports franchise here in Middle Tennessee. We're going to be joined by Nashville SC CEO Ian Ayre to talk about not only that, but also the fact that they're getting ready to open up their home stadium for the first time on May the 1st. Ian Ayre joins us next. Okay, welcome back on this Tuesday. Hope you're having a fantastic one so far. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. It's our great privilege to be joined by Nashville Soccer Club CEO Ian Ayre via Zoom right now. Ian, we appreciate you stopping by. I know there's a lot of excitement right now around this team and this club and the stadium getting ready to open up for the first time to fans en masse. You guys got to be thrilled with how this has gone so far.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't be happier. I was saying to somebody, 4 years since I got here, and to think that 4 years ago we had the stadium on a piece of paper and the team on a piece of paper, and here we are now, third season, stadium, academy, practice facility, 150 staff and 30 players. So really incredible stuff. So
that is... The logistics of that are impossible for the uninitiated to imagine, right? Like it's easy to understand, okay, we're getting a USL team and the goal is for MLS to come to Nashville eventually. And, ultimately the team's success is going to predicate the interest and things of that nature. But I'm sure there have been many logistical hurdles throughout the course of that 4-year process. Is there one that comes to mind when you think back on it now and just kind of laugh, be like, thank goodness that we got through that okay?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest piece was obviously getting the approval on the stadium, which kind of, was a peaks and troughs to that. But I think in some way it showed that, it made a lot of people come out and support us and the team, in those meetings with the city, and then the sort of challenges with the mayor, and I think in a way what it did was, for those people who doubted, the demand and the need for soccer, it flushed a lot of people out, and that's kind of really added to our support. And here we are, sat with just shy of 22,000 season ticket holders and sold out for games, and that was the biggest hurdle, I think. And of course, logistically, building the stadium is huge, but there are so many parts and so many people to that. But we're good with where we are, and all of those little hurdles kind of brought us together, really.
Nashville SC CEO Ian Ayre is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, Nashville SC opens up Geodis Park on May the 1st against the Philadelphia Union. Lucas and I will be in attendance. We are among the just shy of 22,000 season ticket holders. And of course, there will be a pregame show that Lucas and Will Bowling are hosting right here on 104.5 The Zone from 1 to 3 before the match takes place. So you bring up the idea of doubters and general questions around interest of a soccer club here in Middle Tennessee. From me, Ian, as somebody who's been kind of brought along with this, Lucas is much more in tune. He's paying attention to EPL games on the weekends and things like that in a way that has not been a part of my life, but I'm certainly here and ready to support and take part in this because it seems to be just such a great communal atmosphere. How much of that is just lowest common denominator discussion because a lot of people don't necessarily know how to talk about a soccer club in Middle Tennessee rather than just saying, oh, well, we've never had it. What will the interest be?
Yeah, I think it's like anything, I guess, that you're having to break it down into certain categories. There was always a hardcore and still is of fans who've always loved this game and played it at high school or school.
Right.
And that, so I think it's relatively an easy game to understand. And so our journey has really been engaging with that group initially, who of course were here and supportive of amateur soccer and then USL. And so they were a natural flow into MLS. And then it was about engaging sports fans and then, of other sports and hockey and football and baseball and bringing them to the party and helping them kind of fall in love with this. And then, one of the things that really attracted me when I met with John Ingram and came to Nashville for the very first time was just this civic pride that Nashvillians and Tennesseans have. And a big journey from those numbers of the other sports and soccer fans to the wider audience has been about engaging this civic pride that is here. And we've seen it. We saw it way back in February 2020 when we had 60,000 people show up. And, we've only had these first 4 May games on sale now and almost sold out for all of them. So, it's a real thing, and it's, we built a great stadium. We built it sort of for the future of where the game was going, but here we find ourselves, maybe it's not big enough. We have such great demand, which is a fantastic situation to be in.
If you can say that the largest soccer-specific stadium in the country may not be big enough, you're feeling pretty good about the circumstance so far. So you guys made an announcement as far as club minority ownership is concerned that was of great interest to local sports fans. Derrick Henry is coming in as part of the ownership group of the Nashville Soccer Club. Now, the logistics of that, we don't necessarily have to dive into the financial details or anything like that, but to have that kind of support from not just one of the city's most recognizable stars, but one of the biggest stars in American sport right now, what does that do outside of the financial support that whatever that involved offers?
Yeah, it's fantastic for us and fantastic for Derrick and his family. I think what was important is, as we were just saying about this sport versus more traditional US sports like football and hockey and baseball. Here's a guy, as you say, at the top of his game in that sport, in football, and seeing and recognizing the direction that MLS is going in. I mean, it's every metric you look at in Major League Soccer is growing. And in this city, it's such an important part of becoming such an important part of this city and its sports landscape and its kind of community part. And I think Derrick and his team of people really recognize that. And it's, we're hugely grateful that he's been able to see that and see that he wants to be part of something that's, growing and growing. And John Ingram started the MLS investment on his own side from wanting to create something for everyone in Nashville. And I think Derrick has similar views for that.
Nashville SC CEO Ian Ayre is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. So now, Ian, we talk about this regularly on our show, and I'm certain as somebody who is overseeing the operations of a club, this is true for you as well. We're fortunate that the internet is not a real place as far as like real life concerns go, but a good portion of social media conversation around the club after Lucas and I were out there to do the radio show a couple of weeks ago was about the prices of things like concessions and things of that nature. How I guess did you guys receive that, and do you feel that that is fair criticism given what the standard is at places like Bridgestone Arena or Nissan Stadium, for example?
Yeah, I think, look, I was very relaxed, honestly, through that process generally. I think that a couple of things stood out to me. One is on that day, as you know, because you were there, that there were very few concessions open. So they were really a real handful of what is going to be incredible. And I think the general reaction to our spread of concessions and the choices has been great. There were a lot of talk about the most expensive beer and the price of the hot dog that was available in that particular concession or concessions. We'll have a $6.50 beer or whatever and a $5 hot dog. The range is incredible. And I think there was a little bit of cherry picking going on, in that sort of play out from that. But we're relaxed about it. We know that we really did a lot of work, both to give a really good spread of choice in the types of food and local foods and brands that people know and love and recognize in Nashville. And then secondly, of course, we looked at our competitors in this market, Bridgestone Arena, Nissan Stadium, First Horizon Park, and we're in the same place as all of them in pretty much, not literally product for product, but across the spread. We'll have a beer at a similar lower price to Bridgestone or whatever, or Nissan, and we'll have an expensive one as well. And it's really about giving everybody a choice. We use that mantra from day one, something for everyone. And if you go look around the concessions, you'll find something for everyone at everybody's price point, I think.
Certainly, Lucas and I can speak to that ourselves. We had the opportunity to go and see Geodis Park and hang out. We're very much looking forward to being in the building on May the 1st. So, Ian, how do you go about marketing a team for basically a month and a half once the season starts that doesn't play a home game for their first 8 games? I imagine that's a fairly difficult challenge, no?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a challenge. I think, what's been interesting is building an anticipation from that. And the team on the field have done just such an awesome job of building that energy and anticipation. For people who don't know our sport so well and those who are getting to know it well, this is one of the hardest leagues, I would say, in the world of soccer to go take points on the road. I mean, that's an absolute data point. And, to come away from 8 games with 11 points on the road, I think it's more, we've certainly got the most points on the road of any team in the league at this point, but that's also helped by the fact that we haven't played other than on the road. But we're really in great shape. We come into the homestand starting on Sunday with 26 games remaining in the regular season and 17 of them at home. We didn't lose a game at home at all last season. We only lost 2 in the last 2 seasons at home. We're really setting ourselves up for an incredible season here. And it has been hard on fans, not to be able to go out and worship the team and put all that support in. But we've had great road support, seen fans at every game on the road, and nowhere will be better or more difficult for road teams to play at than Geodis Park, with 30,000 screaming Tennesseans in that building shouting for Nashville SC, and I for one can't wait.
Nor can we. We're looking forward to being in the building on May the 1st, Geodis Park, the Philadelphia Union, Nashville SC. A pregame coverage with our own Lucas Panzica and Will Bowling from 1 to 3 before that match begins from Geodis Park. Ian Ayre, kind enough to be our guest on this Tuesday. Ian, thank you so much for stopping by. Continued success for you and the club, and thank you for giving us some of your time. I know you're busy right now. Thank you, and thanks always for your support, and look forward to seeing you on Sunday. That's Ian Ayre, CEO of Nashville Soccer Club, there with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, NFL Draft Week fully underway. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network will join us in the final hour. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. We're 2 days away from the 2022 NFL Draft in Las Vegas, and there was some movement on Monday. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting the Patriots have traded their 5th-round pick to the Texans for Houston's 6th and 7th round picks. Otherwise, been fairly quiet as far as trades go, at least as of now. Nashville Soccer Club announced today 3 new minority owners in media investor Jim Toth, actress and Nashville native Reese Witherspoon, and Titans running back Derrick Henry. Nashville SC opens up Geodis Park on Sunday against Philadelphia Union after an 8-game road trip to start the season. Tonight, the first-round series between Grizzlies and Timberwolves returns to FedEx Forum in Memphis, tied up at 2-2. Tip-off is at 6:30. Elsewhere in the NBA, the Hawks are at the Heat tonight, trailing 3-1. That's a 6 o'clock tip, and the Pelicans and Suns play at 9. The series tied up at 2. Huge night for the Nashville Predators playoff hopes, hosting the Calgary Flames in Bridgestone Arena. A 7 p.m. puck drop with 3 games left. A Preds win in regulation tonight would clinch a playoff spot, as would a Vegas loss in regulation to Dallas. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour underway. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back if you've been hanging out with us so far on this Tuesday. I hope you're having a great one. We certainly are. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to jump in on our conversations at any point today. 615-737-1045. That's the number. You call that number, Lucas Panzica picks up the phone. Lucas is back there having a great time today. You excited for your Nashville SC pregame show? Just given the fact that we just had Ian Ayre on?
Yeah, I can't believe that their next game is at Geodis Park. That's the surreal thing for me, that the road trip is finally over, and the next time they take the field, we will be in that building.
So what are you going to do? Because I'm going to this game. I'm going to see the sun for the first time after 3 days locked in the Titans practice facility off a draft weekend. Geodis Park is the first fresh air that I'm going to breathe. And I plan on being thoroughly intoxicated at this soccer match. Well,
it's a work day for me. Will Bowling and I will be live from 1 to 3 pregame inside of the park on a broadcast platform. Really looking forward to it. We'll talk to Ian Ayre. We'll talk to General Manager Mike Jacobs. Some other interviews. We'll preview the game and just the long road that's led up to this happening, opening the largest soccer-specific stadium in the U.S. here in Nashville.
So you're saying that you don't want me to drunkenly stumble upon the stage with you guys and to participate in the pregame coverage. Is that what you're saying?
No, we will not be handing you a microphone. Yes.
Handing me a microphone is an entirely different proposition from me, consorting with Kirby Allen Kirby to make sure that I have a microphone in one form or the other. I cannot be stopped.
So you'll be screaming about the Titans' 5th-round draft pick? Is that what you want to do? Stumble up there and start screaming about a 5th-round draft pick on a pregame show?
No, buddy. Once I come out of this facility on Saturday night, I am going to want nothing to do. I'm going to want very much for the draft to be over and done with by the time the draft is, in fact, over and done with. I have had my fill of draft coverage. But that being said, we have Mike Giardi of the NFL Network, who will be here in 15 minutes. To discuss the NFL draft. He will be embedded at the New York Jets facility. And we have yet to have a discussion about the quarterback that I think that they should draft at 26. We've not talked about that just yet. So I think that's probably the place that we need to start. I've gone back and forth on this. Now, if you listen to the radio show yesterday from the by the way, the Spring Golf Classic was so well done. We appreciate all of the people at Old Natchez for allowing us and for working with us to make sure that became a success. The Zone marketing and sales team that put all of that on are spectacular. And for every one of you who came out and played yesterday, it was great to meet some of you, and certainly all the great people who made that possible was a great success. But, when we were doing the show yesterday at the golf course, I had said that something in my gut makes me think that quarterback will not be the position that they go in the first round, which is not any kind of controversial, right? If you heard Sheil Kapadia earlier on the radio show talking about the idea that the Green Bay Packers in this draft may trade up. They've got 2 picks, but they may trade up to try and get 38-year-old Aaron Rodgers additional help. You can't Jordan Love things around Aaron Rodgers anymore. You got a window. You got to capitalize on the window that you have Aaron Rodgers. And in the case of Ryan Tannehill, 34 years old, coming off his, I would argue that that's the worst career game of Ryan Tannehill's career as a Titan, I think, for a variety of different reasons, but the onus still falls on him.
Magnitude of the moment, I think, absolutely should qualify that as the worst game of his Titans career.
I think we're in agreement. So you're coming off the recency bias of that, and also understanding that Ryan Tannehill, in the 2 seasons prior, has been making things happen in a way that they haven't in the last 15 years of Titans football. So far be it from the fan base to forget the last 15 years of Titans football, which have been ungodly awful by any stretch of the imagination. We talked about new Nashville in quotes earlier. When I moved to Nashville to work in sports, and when I somehow stumbled my way into watching or into covering the Tennessee Titans at 22 years old, which was an egregious error by everybody involved. My credentials should have never been improved. And yet, here we sit. I hated them. I hated watching the Titans. I could not stand them because their games were horrendous. You would see offense all over the rest of the league. The evolution of the passing game taking over from the running game happening in real time, and yet the Tennessee Titans are duking it out on the road in Cleveland against the team that would go on to not win a single NFL game that season, an overtime 13-9 or 12-9 game, field goals decided, and a Kevin Byard hat trick off of Deshaun Kaiser, and I want to say like Matt Barkley or Kevin Hogan or one of the other terrible Browns, both of whom, by the way, played for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. Actually, no, all of them. All 3.
Yes, that is correct.
Every single quarterback you just named.
That is correct. All of those players did end up on the Titans roster for a hot second. But I remember getting here and hating watching their games, hating not being able to change the channel, hating the fact that I'd miss out on Patriots-Steelers or something like that on a Sunday afternoon. And since then, Ryan Tannehill has completely changed everything. Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown and Jeffrey Simmons, like it's not just one player, but the quarterback and the elevation of the offense around the quarterback completely changed my mindset every time I would trudge into Nissan Stadium because I felt that I was going to see an exciting product, a winning product, an entertaining product. Even as they were winning games when there were 12-9 field goal touchdownless games taking place, they would win, but the product, horrendous. And so now we sit here with Ryan Tannehill at a bit of a crossroads, right? Now maybe the crossroads comes next season and all of this is for naught. But as I sit here today, looking at the conversation around the quarterbacks and thinking, even if I don't think it's going to happen, I would completely support their decision to take a quarterback in the first round this year. I would find nothing, well, not nothing objectionable about it, depending on who the quarterback is. But if they were to get Desmond Ridder at 26, and if they were to select Desmond Ridder at 26, I would be completely and totally comfortable and confident in their decision-making. Because you've got a team that's built to win now, and if you don't think you can do it with this quarterback, okay, find a more economical solution. Much less a first-round pick with fifth-year option control that gives you additional security around that player at that position when that is so hard to manage. Look at what the Chargers have been able to do around Justin Herbert, understanding that Justin Herbert is by far and away a superior talent. But did we know that when Tua was taken before Justin Herbert? Of course not. Now, Herbert has clear and obvious physical abilities that there's things about Herbert that you cannot coach. And in the case of any of these quarterbacks who are getting ready to come out, there's going to be a lot of coaching involved around them, no matter who it is or where they land. Malik Willis coming from a grade school offense and having to operate in the next level, going to be a learning curve for that guy. Desmond Ridder, whose biggest criticisms at this point are accuracy, which is, by the way, something I have never worried about Ryan Tannehill with. And you would say, if you, in hearing that, coming off the last game that we saw Tannehill play, well, how could you not question his accuracy when he throws 3 interceptions? And I would tell you, numbnuts, go watch the 3 interceptions and tell me if the accuracy was the issue or it was just the decision-making. Those are 2 different things. But if the Tennessee Titans were to come out with a quarterback, I would be completely and totally fine with either Desmond Ridder or Malik Willis. Whichever of them they have graded higher and whichever of them would find their way to the mid to late 20s. That's not an indictment of Ryan Tannehill either. I still think they can win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. I came on the radio Monday after they blew that playoff game against the Bengals and said, I still think they can win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. Completely and totally believe that to this day. But would I think that they were foolish for taking one this year in the first round? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it makes too much sense as long as the quarterback whom they end up selecting in this hypothetical is the quarterback that they have properly graded, because this is not the year to reach when you have so many other needs on that side of the ball. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on this conversation. If you like, Mike Giardi of the NFL Network will be here soon as well. Let's go to Jake, who calls us from Boston, Mass., who wants to chime in today. Hello, Jake.
Buck, sorry to hear about your bar, man. It's a bummer.
It's the worst. It's okay, Jake. I'm new Nashville. I'm the problem here.
It's the price we pay. So quick comment on the Ridder thing. You dive into Twitter, any Titans hashtag, call it the last month and a half. There's a lot of buzz around it. I think it makes sense in a lot of areas. And then I think also in just looking at the crossroads where they are with Tannehill, in a vacuum, it's not that different to the one they were at when Strunk decided to fire Malarkey and bring in Vrabel, right? We know they're good. We know they, can do X, Y, and Z with.
We know they're good. We know they can be better.
Right. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I wonder as well if the quarterback evaluations are in a weird phase when thinking about, the sexiness that everybody likes now with Mahomes and Allen. Because you hear people talk about it, there's the accuracy thing, there's this, there's that. What the grade ultimately comes down to is he's the best, pure quarterback in the class. So I also wonder if some of this evaluation has become a thing of, thinking too much about it, So I'll hang up, but just think it's interesting, think it makes a lot of sense. And, at the end of the day, these guys just got to play quarterback, and that's really what it boils down to.
Thank you, Jake. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. Take more of your phone calls on the quarterback situation and on the coaching staff, because this will factor in as well. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network will be here next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
ABCs. That's what we're walking through on draft week, man. The ABCs of the NFL draft. Where does QB factor into the ABCs of the NFL draft? That is the question, I think. Because I've gone back and forth on this. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network going to be here in a second. We'll get to your phone calls in just a moment. But I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this, and not just from a gut feeling, just trying to get a sense of, and of course it's nearly impossible because you don't know who's lying to you about what in the NFL draft process, as many people as you try to talk to and do your due diligence on. But I don't know. I just feel like there is something consequential, something that I feel like is going to set the Titans fan base on fire is going to happen on Thursday night. I don't know if it's going to be a quarterback or not, but I have that premonition as we sit here 2 days away. Mark is in Clarksville, wants to weigh in on the idea that I'm good with the Titans taking a quarterback at 26. Mark, what say you?
I am not good with the Titans taking a quarterback, and I want to know your opinion on how much of a detriment it has been since Arthur Smith left on Tannehill, and in the last Bengals game, I think they played too conservative and ran Derrick Henry or too much and should have went with Foreman. Foreman was game ready. And I'll hang up and take your response on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call, Mark. 615-737-1045. What are you laughing about back there? What happened?
We covered a lot of bases.
Well, he's for all we know, Mark has been waiting 3 weeks or 3 months to get that takeoff. Here's the thing about Ryan Tannehill and Arthur Smith's absence. I think that is so low on the list of things. Now, I'm not saying it's inconsequential, Mark, but I think it's so low on the list of things that went wrong with Ryan Tannehill last season. I think that there is so much that you can attribute to the attrition on the roster, the fact that Derek wasn't there for a good chunk, damn near half of the NFL season, and all of the different parts and pieces that a quarterback who, needs a certain amount of comfort and stability around him to be able to operate at a high level, which could be said about any quarterback. The fact that was all but stripped away from him, and the guy whose biggest criticism coming from Miami was the fact that he couldn't stay healthy, was the only healthy player on the roster last year. But I don't know that the Titans aren't going to take a quarterback. I know that the New York Jets are not going to take a quarterback, which is where Mike Giardi will be embedded on NFL Draft Night. Mark Giardi, the NFL Network, joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. How did you draw the short straw? What are you doing in New York?
Come on, baby. They got 4, 10, 35, 38. We got moving and shaking happening in Florida Park, New Jersey, baby.
Look at that. Mike Giardi's going to be all over your television screens on the NFL Network. Their coverage, of course, begins on Thursday. The first round begins at 7 p.m. Central Time with our friends like Charles Davis, who was here yesterday, and our, I think Giardi at this point is more of an acquaintance than anything, but Giardi will be on television too. So the Jet, did you get to pick your assignment? How was this done?
No. It was given to me. You start looking at the board. Obviously, most people continue to see me as being affiliated with the Patriots. They're picking 21, not again till 54. This is one of the movers and shakers in the draft. So I'm kind of excited to be there and see how this all plays out with New York. And the Jets have had a really good off season. I know that sounds crazy, but they've had a really nice. They had a plan, man. They had a plan. They signed a couple tight ends, which is what they need for that offense. And Uzama and Conklin. They got Lake and Tomlinson. They signed DJ Reed. They've had a nice little off season. It won't matter if Zach Wilson can't play, but so far so good.
Yeah, well, their plans to trade for A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, that's been foiled. So, we'll grade on that kind of a curve. Mike Giardi, at Mike Giardi is where you can follow him on the socials. What do you make of the fact, Giardi? I haven't talked about this yet, but I was reading Sam Farmer from the LA Times this morning before I started the show, and he wrote a column on the idea that there are 8 teams in this draft that don't have a first-round pick. Has that caught you? Does that strike you as an interesting storyline to follow, or is that something that we won't see materialize until later this season?
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and I think you have to wonder if part
reaction to how the Rams went about their business, and won a Super Bowl and have been in the mix. I think you look at Vegas, trading assets for he's 29, 30 years old receiver. I mean, he's a great receiver, but those are some interesting moves that have been made. And you wonder if people are going to start following those trends a little bit in the National Football League. And when you're, a team like the Jets or the Giants, and you realize you've been stuck in this hell for a long time, hey, you want to give me premium picks for players that, aren't going to be part of our future 2-3 years down the line? Let's do it, and let's see what happens.
So I don't know how much time you've gotten with Joe Douglas or how much time you will get with Joe Douglas before the draft gets underway. Has he talked about their efforts to go out and trade for one of these wide receivers who is entering potentially a second contract / extension situation? Because I don't think it's Joe Douglas's fault. I don't know who to send the middle finger to in New York around this area. Maybe perhaps I'm blanking on the Jets beat writer for ESPN. Rich Cimini. Perhaps Rich Cimini is who I should send my middle fingers to. But regardless, have you talked to Joe Douglas, their GM, about all this nonsense?
Yes. Look, he's made it very clear. He's not going to get into specifics, although he did. They didn't deny the obvious interest in the offer that was accepted for Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill didn't accept going there and choosing Miami instead. But, I mean, his thing is, look, we're in a position that we haven't been in recent years, where we have all this draft capital, we have the money, and everything that we're doing now going forward is about supporting and developing our young quarterback. And so what better way to do that, obviously, than to go get him an elite pass catcher, which is why you're going to keep hearing the Jets and player X, receiver X, until, that receiver either re-signs with his new team or gets moved.
It's just I'm pleading with the people down the road at St. Thomas Sports Park to just sign this AJ extension and get both his Twitter account and everybody else's in the state of New York out of my life. What do you make of the AJ Brown situation?
I'm not surprised. I think once the Hill and Adams deals went through, it just became sort of this, wait a minute, I think I'm as good as he is. And, why should I go risk myself here and not get that next contract and get the mega money? I mean, receiver has clearly moved up the charts in terms of how we view it as a premium position, and now it's becoming a premiumly paid position. So I get where, him and McLaurin and Metcalf and all those guys are coming from. But I got some pushback on this, but I was talking to one front office guy, and his quote was like, look, these guys are all going to get their money because all it takes is one team to get them their money. But, be prepared to be on a crappy team or be prepared to be in a not so great situation, i.e. Detroit or Houston, have capital. Houston's been rumored to be involved in some of these big name receivers as well. Like, is the $25 million a year worth it to go play in a place where nobody seems to want to go? I think that's the question that those guys have to weigh for themselves. Like, is the $25 million, or can I live on 20 and stay with an organization that drafted me, raised me, and that I feel good in?
Can I live on $20 million a year? Mike Giardi, man of the people, here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
They live in a debt. These guys, it's monopoly money. They live in a different world than we do. Mm-hmm. And if 25 means more than 20 and that's what they want to do, God bless them.
I listen, I'm taking their lead when my contract comes up next. I demand $20 million a year for the services that we provide here on 104.5 The Zone, and I'm sure everybody would tell me to kick rocks. But anyway, Mike,
I was going to say, good luck with that.
I think I'm worth it, Mike. Don't help me in the negotiation process. I can't have you slandering my good name. So with all of this, Mike, as we sit here locally, and I know you do your due diligence on the Tennessee Titans as well, I don't know that I'm advocating for them to take a quarterback at 26 if there's one that's there that they're sold on. But do you have a strong feeling one way or the other about the quarterback situation here in Tennessee?
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. I think, we talked about the last time I was on, Ryan just, for a lot of reasons, just wasn't good enough for them last year. And, some of that was clearly not having all his guys on the field. But when you're paying a quarterback that amount of money, there's got to be times where he has to elevate. And he didn't elevate, and certainly didn't elevate in the most key of moments, that being in the postseason. So
I don't hate the idea. I mean, I know they've done some funny things with his contract and had to rework it at various points. But if they do like somebody, Desmond Ridder, I couldn't get mad at that if I was them. You got to look at that position short term and long term, and maybe he's the long term answer.
Even if Mike Giardi, the NFL Network, is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, NFL Network's coverage will be exhaustive across all 3 days. Giardi's going to be embedded with the Jets. You can catch all of their coverage on NFL Network Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, beginning at 7 p.m. Central Time. The indictment, though, of many of this quarterback class, the indictment on Ridder is that his accuracy is the primary issue, Mike. I don't know. I mean, accuracy is coachable depending on what about the mechanics of the quarterback are causing the inaccuracy. But I'm good with Desmond Ridder. I like Desmond Ridder. I think the best fit for Desmond Ridder would be here in Tennessee. But the idea that the accuracy is the primary criticism, that gives me pause, especially when the quarterback here just threw 3 picks in a playoff game.
Yeah, well, Ridder might not even get to you because I have a good understanding that Pittsburgh really likes him as well and that he knocked their socks off in his in-person stuff. So they're at 20. But to your point about the accuracy, I don't know that I always want to be married to this, but I used to think you could make incremental improvements on your accuracy. And, if you were okay, you could end up being, pretty good. But then we saw Josh Allen go like bananas.
Yeah. And
if you're willing to – and look, obviously from a physical talent standpoint, I mean, he's a freak at that position. But, Ridder has some pretty good measurables. If he's willing to put in the time, and from all the people that you talk to, he is, then maybe, he does make that improvement from – Allen went from 52 to 59 to 70 or something in his first 3 years. But maybe Ridder's someone that, you work with him closely. This is now your full-time job. You don't have to pretend to be a student anymore. This is what you're doing. I think there's enough about the kid's makeup that says to you that, if he puts the time in, maybe he can make a substantial leap in that regard.
So what did you do to celebrate your Boston Celtics eliminating the Brooklyn Nets as the first team to be eliminated from the NBA playoffs? You smoke a cigarette? I mean, I can imagine you glowing. Imagine you after this game, especially the way that Kevin Durant tried so desperately to pull them out. And after one of the Boston players got ejected, their best player gets ejected, and Brooklyn still can't find a way. Did you enjoy the detriment and the pain of Brooklyn in that series?
I revel in seeing Kyrie lose. And people say, oh, he's in your head. No. When he was here, he did so many things wrong. And from telling everybody, if you'll have me, I'm going to stay, I'm going to sign the long term, to then quitting on that team, to then, some of the stories, walking up to Brad Stevens, the then Celtics coach, before a big game, getting into his face and saying, what does government mean to you? That is an actual thing that happens, okay? So, he's a smart guy who maybe thinks he's smarter than he really is. And I don't know. You know what it looked like last night? Looked like he didn't want to be there. Looked like he kind of quit. And I enjoy that. Good luck with that being your guy for the next X amount of years. Nets, if in fact they do sign him to the long-term extension, which of course is what KD wants, then KD will get it.
Homer Boston Giardi is my favorite version.
I love it. So good.
NFL Network is where you can watch him. He'll be embedded with the New York Jets throughout the course of NFL Network's coverage. It begins Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. Buddy, I appreciate you spending some time, and I appreciate your hatred of all things Kyrie Irving. Makes me very happy.
Anytime, buddy.
That's Mike Giardi with us on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045 is how you react to anything around that conversation. The Joe Douglas thing about trading or trying to be in on the Tyreek Hill trade and then having that go through with Miami, looking around at your options and saying, okay, the Rich Cimini report, if you want to call it that, comment, whatever, that the Jets are keeping an eye on the situations of basically every rookie or what receiver that's still on a rookie contract that is worth a second contract, worth an extension, and how the Jets have tried to manage that moving forward. Honestly, I think what New York is doing around Zach Wilson is the model that that makes the most sense for the Tennessee Titans in the post-Tannehill world, right? They've clearly spent, and New York spends on a regular basis. So this is not like it's uncommon. Remember, I mean, the last time I was still getting Sports Illustrated, it's been a long time since I've got a hard copy of Sports Illustrated delivered to my home. But at the time when, I can't remember who was the executive at the time that the Jets were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, right? It was Darrelle Revis in his second stint with New York. Ryan Fitzpatrick had his best season as a professional quarterback in New York. They had all the collection of free agents that signed there that were helping to prop up the Jets. And, ultimately they ended up missing the playoffs that year in the final game of the regular season. But for Tennessee, Tannehill being on the roster does not by any stretch of the imagination rule out the position of quarterback. But that concern about Desmond Ridder and his accuracy issues, that's real. If a team like Pittsburgh thinks that it is coachable enough that they can take him 6 picks before the Titans are on the board, Tennessee may be SOL if they are in the quarterback market as we sit here today. But again, this is the drama of the draft. It's the picks that take place before your team selects and how much that can drastically and dramatically shift all of your thinking, the thinking that you've had for 3 months about what your favorite team needs to do. All of it can evaporate as soon as, 4 quarterbacks go off the board in the first round in allegedly a weak quarterback class. And you're looking around, sitting there thinking, okay, now what do we do? That's when the real general managing starts as far as the draft process is concerned. That's when the pressure at its highest is going to be applied to John Robinson and his staff. It's what makes picking where they typically do in the, 19 is the highest pick that they've had in some time outside of Rashaan Evans was in the 20s, even though they traded up for him. Caleb Farley in the 20s. You've got now 26. I think Isaiah was 29, if memory serves. Yep. He was right around the second round. So it does make it more difficult because you've done all your homework, and then all of that homework can be washed away in an instant because 20 other teams or 25 other teams have made their decision, and now you're left holding the proverbial bag. Last call for phone calls, poll questions to be updated, and some news on the NFL draft coverage that I think is going to make this year feel a whole hell of a lot different. We'll tell you what that is coming up next. Oh, this speaks to my soul. Little Bruce on a Tuesday. Welcome back. Wrapping things up for our leg of the programming today. Last call for phone calls before we put a bow on it. Man, I don't know. I think you have to like Bruce Springsteen if you're going to work in sports. If you're going to be a male working in sports, I feel like it's a qualification. That's how we weed people out. That's the only reason I work in sports, because I like Bruce Springsteen. That was the only reason. It just happened to materialize.
That's what did it.
Peter King handed the mantle on from down high and said, "Listen, do you like Dancing in the Dark?" And I said, yes. And then I started covering the Tennessee Titans. There's a portion of the draft coverage that I think is going to be a lot different for some people, depending on how you consume this, that I want to get to here in just a second. But let's get to Mafa, who's calling us from Franklin, wants to talk about the QB situation. Hello, Mafa.
Yes, I'm a long-time listener, a second-time caller, and my mommy and I have been Titans fans from the days of Warren Moon.
Excellent.
But what my thing is to say this. I like Kenny Hill because I do think he's a leader. I just don't know if he has the ability and the talent to take us to the next level. That's one thing that I would want to comment on. And then secondly, Derrick Henry, the injury that he had, and I've done research on this, medically speaking, but the injury that he had is extremely tough to come back from. And my concern is, and my mommy and I just talked about this, can he ever be the same? So those are my two things. I'm going to hang up and listen. And by the way, I'm a big Springsteen fan as well. I think that's funny that you say that.
Thank you for the call, Mafa. 615-737-1045. I've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure, maybe not this week, but I think last week I was telling people I thoroughly believe that this is Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry's last year together as Tennessee Titans. Now, which of those, I doubt it'd be both of them, but which of those two end up being the odd man out at the end of the 2022 season, we will just have to see how it plays out. But I don't disagree with the idea that Ryan Tannehill is a good player and a right fit for this team, but may ultimately not be able to get them to the place that they need to go. And for Derrick Henry's part, I've always had that question in the back of my head just because of the running back position, not because of Derrick, but because of the running back position. And I think that complicates things for a lot of people given their emotions around Derrick Henry. Now, the thing that is going to be different around the draft coverage, and we'll do the polls after we do this. Lucas, can we play the audio from Kirk Herbstreit, who made an announcement on his social media platform, Nashville native, local, if not native, Kirk Herbstreit, who had some things to say about why he will not be a part of ESPN's draft coverage this year.
Hey guys, big week with the NFL draft out in Las Vegas. Always one of my favorite events of the year. Unfortunately, I will not be able to come out to Vegas and be a part of this year's coverage. Doctors have recently found a blood clot in my system. And so very fortunate to have really good doctors who I trust. I feel good. But out of an abundance of caution, I think I'm just going to take a step back from this year's draft coverage. We still have a great team out in Vegas with ABC and ESPN. Unfortunately, I just won't be with them and at this year's event. Like I said, I love the draft. I love watching the players, their stories, the coverage of it, watching the families, the emotions that come with it. And I'm just sad I will not be able to be out there. But I will be watching like everybody else. Look forward to seeing all the different storylines unfold. But I will see you guys at next year's draft. And you guys have a great week. And I just wanted to fill you in on why I will not be out there at the draft this year. Take care.
So that's Kirk Herbstreit. Blood clot is what he is going to miss with. And that's going to be that's obviously we send our thoughts to Kirk and his family as he works through that, and glad to hear that he's in good shape. But the thing that is known to exacerbate blood clots is airplane travel. And Kirk is somebody who's going to do a ton of that between college football and calling Thursday night football games in the NFL this year on Amazon. So that's unfortunate that that's something that Kirk's having to go through. All right, let's brighten it up a little bit. Do some polls.
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Reising Show correspondent, Lucas. Pan, make that poll Zika.
Rapid fire.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. Custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you when it gets manufactured. Who are the winners of the weekend? A few submissions for Tennessee baseball.
Yes, Tennessee baseball is probably the best one locally. For me, it's Kyle Schwarber, who basically told Angel Hernandez to sit and spin.
For me, it's the Nashville Sounds, who put out a couple of SportsCenter top 10 quality plays over the weekend.
Look at that. Have a weekend baseball.
Who are the losers of the weekend? Chad says Florida baseball.
That's a tough scene. No, the Brooklyn Nets for one of the greatest all-time choke jobs in the NBA playoffs. That was a tough one.
Which quarterback would you pick for the Titans at 26? Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, or Malik Willis if he just so happened to be there? Not likely. Anything could happen. 40% do say Willis, 31% go Ridder, 22% Corral, 7% Howell.
Willis or Ridder for me, but I don't think either of them are going to be there. So if you're looking for a quarterback upgrade this year, I don't know that it's going to be the easiest thing to do.
More disappointing super team, Lakers or Nets? 57% say Lakers.
Yeah, that's the Nets. The Lakers were just a bunch of washed old dudes out there trying to relive their glory. Get the hell out of here with Russell Westbrook, one of the most inefficient players in the history of the sport. No more couch tweeting, LeBron.
But LeBron not making the playoffs, I think, at least qualifies them to have an argument as the most disappointing quote-unquote super team.
No, if in the year of the Rona and whichever higher power that you pray to, if they told you that they were forming a team with Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, I mean, Rondo was on that team to start the year, and I think LeBron's like 37, 38 at this point, I would have told you that team may make the playoffs, but they're going to be playing in the play-in game because those dudes are washed.
Where is your go-to draft coverage? 46% say ESPN, 38% say NFL Network, 16% say Titans Radio. Jason Fitz, who will join us tomorrow, says, I highly recommend a show you can watch on all digital ESPN platforms. I hear the host is super average, but people still talk about one of the staggeringly good-looking special guests that appeared on the Nashville edition of said show.
Yep, that was me, and all Fitzy is talking about is Mike Golick Jr. and Mina Kimes making fun of the fact that I look like Andrew Luck for 20 minutes. Those are the polls?
Those are the polls, and you do look like Andrew Luck.
Shut up. That's the show. Blaine and Mickey are next.